When I was a kid, I didn't really grow up with Kirby. Sure, I was aware of the 4Kids show, and I did play my fair share of Kirby's Air Ride for the GameCube thanks to our local Blockbuster and all. He didn't have a big presence for me in the catalog of games I played as a kid. Kirby was lost in the sauce, you could say. But thanks to the recent release of Kirby and the Forgotten Land Star-Crossed World Expansion Pack for the Switch 2, that's a mouthful, I thought it was time for me to head back to Kirby and continue where I left off. In fact, back in 2022, I briefly covered the Kirby franchise, discussing my experiences with Dreamland 1 through 3 as well as the NES's Kirby's Adventure, due to the initial release of Forgotten Land, which is amusing to say out loud because it was the same game that brought me to the pink puffball. Also, am I not in the middle of something here? It's probably nothing. I mean, it wasn't that important, right? Right? Plus, I had so much fun covering those games, and while the video quality in my opinion is not that great, I'd like to redo them someday or revisit them since they do hold a special place in my heart, especially when it came down to the early days. And since we're back with Kirbo here, I figured we'd come back to where we left off with the marathon and obviously talk about what I consider, and I think many out there consider, to be like the perfect Kirby game of all time. Kirby Super Stars was the long-awaited SNES title for the Kirby franchise, releasing a year before Dreamland 3. Though for the purposes of this video, I will be covering Kirby Super Stars Ultra, the DS remake that was released in 2008, containing more fun, more action, and of course, more Kirby. Yeah, you love to see it. While the original is available thanks to the Nintendo Switch Online services, I'm just gonna be straight with you all here and say that Super Stars Ultra is better. It's got the same content, but with higher resolution on the graphics, giving off what most Kirby games were going for in the 2000s, and the feel of the game is just better overall. With the help of the DS's dual screen, most of the menu options are cluttered on top, leaving a nice contrast between gameplay and UI design. Easily the best way in my opinion to play Superstars, but even looking back at the original version, that game does hold its charm and merits the talk as well. Listen, whichever one you prefer playing at the end of the day, just know that you're gonna have a good time. Back in the director's chair for this was Masahiro Sakurai, and you can see his design philosophy all over the place. The presentation of Superstars feels more aligned with the ones from Dreamland 1 and Kirby's Adventure, being something more in line with what I can remember seeing from Kirby growing up. Not to discredit the already whimsical nature the previous games brought, especially Dreamland 3 with the pencil-shaded art style, I just admire more of what Sakurai presented here. Superstars Ultra is just as vibrant and colorful, bringing out the Kirby essence that makes the franchise so great in the first place. But unlike the previous titles, Superstars is a collection of rather bite-sized games, making for an anthology of adventures rather than one giant game as a whole. Kinda like those kid packs of cereals you liked as a kid and your mom would always pack for lunch in elementary school. And as the SNES box art states, Kirby Superstars is an 8 games in 1, or 13 if you count what Ultra brought into the mix, and whether you love it or hate it, this is what Sakurai intended. I bet Sakurai's mentality as he was making Superstars was probably like, nah man, screw one Kirby game, we're throwing in 20 of them bitches. I mean, can you even blame him for that mentality? Kirby is his child after all, and the care for said child is scattered in this game's presentation. Mechanically, it's still the same running, jumping, and eating Kirby is known for, but what I do love the most about Superstars is the introduction to the Copy Hats. Yeah, Superstars was where the Copy Hats made their unique debut as the presentation of Kirby's copy abilities, something that Kirby's Adventure lacked. Here in Superstars, considering that Kirby is now in his 16-bit glory, the folks at Halkin thought, alright, it's time for Kirby to get an upgrade of sorts, and decided to slap the pink boy with something to cover his shiny bald head. Not that I'm complaining honestly, because I mean, look at the Copy Hats design themselves. They're so adorable, and when it was already fun having the same abilities as your enemies, now it's doubly so because Kirby now wears a backwards cap with a yo-yo for a weapon, or a little jester hat with a wand, making himself look extra adorable than he already is. My favorite is the green cap he gets with the sword ability because it's a clear nod to Link from the Legend of Zelda franchise, and I'm so happy to see this become a mainstay in later games. If I don't have the sword ability, then I use Cutter since it's roughly the same more or less, and the hat reminds me of a duck because of how it sits on Kirby's head. The yo-yo again because of that backwards cap and seeing Kirby go ham with the thing and spinning around like a Hitmontop, and the hammer ability because when you charge it up in boss fights, most of their health goes away instantly, and it's ridiculous to see Kirby swinging a hammer larger than himself and pulling off the same moves as King Dedede here. Like bro is swinging. Music in this game is also something I found myself bopping my head here and there, since for the most part, they are remixed tracks from the previous Kirby titles. Though to be frank here, you wouldn't know that to be the case if say this was your first ever Kirby experience, and with the music selection all around, it does bring the cheerful atmosphere of a Kirby game for everyone to indulge. Starting the game right off the bat, we only have access to Spring Breeze, which is the perfect title to start honestly. It's a remake of Dreamland 1, now with nice little FMVs to play in the beginning and end, as well as copy abilities to use. Something that the original game wasn't built with, so keep that in mind because using them makes the game much easier than it already was. Seriously, Dreamland 1 was a solid 10-minute adventure at best, but with the copy abilities at your disposal, you're cutting off half of that thanks to Ultra. You see Kirby at the beginning of the game, now you see him at the end. Yeah, it's that quick. Since we are playing a remake of Dreamland 1, I also appreciate how this can be the first Kirby experience for newcomers. It helps that with Kirby Super Star Ultra, you also get tutorials at the start of the game, which you really don't need honestly. I mean, Kirby is a simple game really, and with Spring Breeze, it shows how enjoyable an experience it could be. A Dreamland everyone can play, either for the first time or for those who already enjoyed it back on the Game Boy proper. Beating Spring Breeze also unlocks Revenge of the King, which is Spring Breeze but hard mode. Swap with new color palettes and tougher bosses, if you ask me, it's nothing new other than what the extra mode did back in Dreamland 1. It's a nice addition to Spring Breeze, don't get me wrong, given how easy and quick the game mode is already, and I enjoyed the extra challenge with Kabula here, where he was completely reworked to be a space shooter. Of course, Kirby took that personally and was ready to take action, fighting off knockoff Bullet Bill with a piece strapped to it. Hell yeah, Kirby. Do what you must and see you never, Kabula. King Dedede is also the star of the show in Revenge of the King, as they gave him much more of a personality thanks to the screen text on the bottom of the screen. As if the Kirby show wasn't enough to show how much of a goofball he was, Ultra made sure to add more of the package, especially with the FMVs. And dude is even rocking some sick gear to kick Kirby's ass. My man clearly has a score to settle. I believe Revenge of the King is also the first time we see Bandana Waddle Dee making an appearance, being the only dude cheering Dedede in the background and attempting to push back Kirby as the final soldier standing. They didn't put up much of a fight really against Cosmic Lord Kerbo, but he sure is a 305 ride or die for life by losing the fight, but winning my heart in the end. Bandana Dee, you are one son of a bitch. Up next we have Dino Blade, and damn, that's one hell of a name. Sounds badass and makes me feel like I'm holding some kind of treasure or something. Now for this one, Kirby is out on his usual adventures when one day the rainbow bird Dino Blade is disrupting the vegetation of the nearby area. Now because Kirby is a glutton and doesn't like it when food is being stolen, he sets out on a quest to stop Dino Blade before realizing, oh shit, she was just trying to feed her kids. Damn Kirby, so much for trying to be the hero here. Like to see you explain this one in court. But all is well in the end as Kirby helps raise the kids before leaving in the sunset and heads out into another adventure. Gameplay is the same, and I should stress that for all of the other modes, but I like the stage layouts being a little longer and felt reminiscent of the Dreamland 2 and 3 level designs in some areas. And for those who saw my Dreamland 3 video, you know I love me some Dreamland 3. I also love the nod to the Mario series with a little overworld map, and having a buddy with you through your travels to stop Dino Blade was pretty enjoyable. Easily one of my favorites of Ultra, and I hope to see Dino Blade make a return in a future Kirby game. Now with Dino Blade out of the way, we have Gourmet Race, and well, it's pretty self-explanatory. So have you ever thought of doing a race to the finish line and see who can eat the most food along the way?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, that's what Gourmet Race is basically. You race off against King Dedede and see who can cross the finish line first while eating as much as the fuckers can in the process. I like this because, as far as my Smash brain cell is concerned, this is the mode that gave us the lovely track of Gourmet Race for Smash fans to rejoice. And I think it would be a disservice to not talk about it and just not let the gameplay also speak for itself. Man, that's just awesome. It's very colorful, showing the vibes that Kirby is known for, and it's always fun seeing King Dedede doing other activities that don't involve him being mean-spirited all the time. He sometimes wants to have fun, and it's shown to be an ally in Kirby in future games, and Gourmet Race proves that for me. Suck it, Dedede! I won in the end, and I'm the superior eater. Oh god, no, that's a sentence. With the race over, it's time for us to head into uncharted territories with none other than the Great Cave Offensive. Yeah, you know the one, the very stage in Smash itself that everybody seems to enjoy. Kirby is out on a stroll as he usually does before falling into a pit Looney Tunes style. And I guess because of the amount of food the bastard ate while racing, he couldn't fly that day, so he decides to see what this new adventure has in store for him. Unlike the previous modes, this one is more of a non-linear adventure, almost Metroidvania-like, where Kirby is going from place to place while also collecting some goodies along the way. The more treasure you get, the better the high score, and it's good that it's not a requirement to collect all 60 of these damn things. It's just how much money Kirby got in the end and what he does with it afterwards, yeah, that's not for us to know.
Yeah, so IRS, I think you got the wrong guy.
Now, I enjoy the idea of making Kirby have a grander journey and all, and while the Metroidvania attempt is decent, I appreciate the time I spent moving to the next location. I know we have the amazing mirror to talk more about this down the line, but considering this mode, I greatly admire the approach they went here. It truly felt like I was Indiana Jones searching for treasure, and saying that out loud, I can't stop thinking of Kirby having a whip and a fedora hat. Make it a thing, Nintendo. Make it happen. But whenever I nabbed one, it made me giddy inside because there were some that were major callbacks to other franchises like Zelda, Mario, and even F-Zero. Nice to see I can get Samus's screw attack here, so I guess that's another reason why she was in Planet Popstar back in Dreamland 3, besides the whole Metroid bit there. God, stop losing your shit, Samus. But overall, I think many will find Great Cave Offensive to be a grand old time in the end, and if I ever want to come back to this one and get all the other treasures I missed out, yeah, you know what, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. The next game modes are ones that I personally think solidify the whole Superstar experience, Revenge of Meta Knight and Milky Way Wishes. Starting with Revenge of Meta Knight, the story begins when one day, Meta Knight got tired of the lazy attitude of Dreamland and decided to conquer the land with the help of his ship, the Halberd. Kirby hears Meta Knight's plans and decides to mess with them because you just don't fuck with Kirby's lifestyle, I guess. But that's basically it for this mode's plot. You stop Meta Knight and destroy his ship while there's a timer at the bottom screen, making for one of the more kinetic and chaotic experiences I've had with a Kirby game. It's just go 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 majority of the time, and while short, it's easily the most fun and energetic I've had with the amount of action and copy abilities you have at your disposal as you're continuously wrecking the Halberd. At the bottom of the screen, you not only get the timer egging you on, but also text from Meta Knight's crewmates monitoring the situation, making the whole thing feel more alive and active as you press onwards. Plus, you get to fight Meta Knight like back in Kirby's Adventure, and who doesn't love that? Standing there all menacingly and aura farming, all just for Kirby to go ahead and grab that sword to duel. Yeah, this dude got manners. And then the chase sequence afterwards, once you skedaddle from the exploding ship, this was easily one of the best times I've had, with Kirby riding out into the sunset after saving Dreamland once again, and of course being all that badass. Yeah, that's right folks, Kirby is the real Sigma male here, and nothing is stopping him from, achieving his laziness. Again, I like the take of making a Kirby game be more sporadic and fast-paced with so many things being thrown at you thanks to the crewmates from the Halberd or even Meta Knight himself. Constantly, my eyes were darting from screen to screen to see what else was coming my way, and Revenge of Meta Knight does a solid job of keeping that attention going without doing too much to overstay its welcome. Plus, we get to fight Meta Knight again. Can I stress that part one more time or not? I mean, come on. And then now we got ourselves Milky Way Wishes, or as I like to call it, the Kirby game that should have been. I say that because during my time with this game mode, I had this feeling in the back of my head of how this should have been its own game due to how long and difficult it is in comparison to the other game modes. But the story, as usual, goes that for some reason in Planet Popstar, the Sun and Moon are back with their usual beef, and instead of settling it with a game of Street Fighter, they finally felt like throwing hands that day. In order to stop the two, this jester-looking fella named Marks tells Kirby that he needs to locate Nova, a space genie that, when its power is restored, can grant the wishes of those who seek his power. And so Kirby does that as he sets out on an intergalactic quest to restore Nova's power, and once he does, he finds out that Marks actually wanted to use Nova's power for himself, thus stealing the wishes, and becomes all-powerful like. Only for Kirby to then give him the boot and say adios cabron as he sends him flying into Nova for one cool explosion that he's clearly never looking back at. Unlike the other Kirby games, this game mode is different because gameplay for one, the copy abilities aren't the same as they are in the other game modes. To start, you're back to the early days of Dreamland 1, and in order to get the copy abilities here, you have to go out of your way to find them in their respective stages. But here's the kicker, once you do find them, they're now yours to keep, as you can select select them at the bottom of the screen in case you ever feel like swapping them out. This alone is why Milky Way Wishes might be my favorite out of all the game modes, because it adds a layer of gameplay that wasn't there for most Kirby games. The exploration was fun because the moment I found my first copy ability, I was eager to find other secret areas on the stage to find more of them, and that is the enjoyable feeling I ended up getting throughout most of my time with Milky Way Wishes. It was a cave offensive again, except now I have a whole arsenal under my belt to deal some mass destruction later. And Marks, man, was I happy to see his debut, since I've heard a lot about this little guy from many Kirby enthusiasts and why you never trust the cute and cuddly kind with this franchise. An eldritch cosmic horror he was, and I'm glad to have stopped him from his evil plans. My issue with this mode though was similar to the other ones, and that it being way too short for my liking, and that's because, again, the feeling that this game kinda should have been its own Kirby game if you ask me. The other modes didn't give me much of that impression because, as you can see in their initial game design, they mostly feel rather one-noted. They were one and dones that don't amount to much because they weren't built with that idea in mind, but Milky Way Wishes felt like that wasn't really the case. I could easily see this being a full-fledged game one day, and a part of me thought that maybe that was the intention before either having no time to further develop it or cold feet because Dreamland 3 and 64 were on the horizon. If we go by the initial SNES version, that is. That said, I really like this one though. The difficulty was fun as well as challenging, and that's something I don't quite mention about Super Stars Ultra looking back. With Spring Breeze being the first and only game before you move up the ranks, there is a level of advancement that I didn't realize by the time I unlocked Revenge of the King. Sakurai was a genius in making this be the case, having this natural difficulty progression without feeling like there were some curveballs being thrown your way, as most games would tend to do when it comes to raising the stakes. No, Superstars and Superstars Ultra by extension are just one big linear progression that keep things consistent in each game mode, but adds to the stakes in some aspects here and there. But because of their sadly short lengths, this also adds a detriment to Superstars, as it doesn't feel like one large adventure from start to finish, and this can be proven thanks to Ultra's Meta Knightmare Ultra mode. So yeah, that's quite the segue there. Meta Knight Knightmare Ultra mode, that's a sentence, is the Meta Knight alternative route where you essentially play through every single game mode as one large package deal, going from Spring Breeze to Dino Blade all the way up to Milky Way Wishes. He even has to deal with his own shit for that matter, which is weird because that means there are some continuities here, buddy. Like, what are you doing here? But that's the thing. This mode made all the modes sort of cohesive in their own way, which in retrospect makes for a much more lasting impression for me. And with regards to Meta Knight here, well, his controls and gameplay are also not the same as Kirby, since he doesn't have any copy abilities at his disposal. Instead, he has skills that, with enough skill points, allow you to call up a buddy or heal yourself in the heat of battle, to even having this screen nuke that I sure abused the hell out of because of just how cool it is. I had a lot of fun here with Meta Knightmare Ultra, and if there's anything to go by, this does give me a fun retroactive feeling for whenever I end up playing Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, which is the remake of Kirby's Adventure for the Game Boy Advance, and that game was actually the game that had the first Meta Knightmare mode. And just because of saying that, it makes me excited to want to cover that game someday if, you know, we continue the Kirby Marathon and all that.
Now at this point, one would assume that I'm done talking about the whole game, right? Well, as the saying goes, I got one more in me. Or in this case, I still got like 3, 2, maybe an extra 4, depending on, I don't know. We got more stuff to talk about.
Now to cap things off here, we got both Arena and Helper's Arena. The Arena is a boss rush mode that gives Kirby access to all of his copy abilities and helpers, but has a limited supply of health items each time you head into a boss. As a Mega Man fan, I appreciate the boss rush every now and then, but I guess because of how much I played at this point with Kirby, the Arena wasn't something that was like a top priority for me to fully beat. Maybe because I'm not much to think when it comes to playing Kirby games, or because somehow along the way I got burned out playing Superstars Ultra, which could be the case because of how much I've been doing outside of making videos and so many other projects along the way. I don't know, but this I'm gonna sadly put off for the time being. I still enjoyed it though, don't get me wrong, and also use that guard button when you can to save up on health items because that thing is a blessing in disguise with some bosses out there. Seriously, I forgot this was even a mechanic you have for this game, and it's not exclusive to this mode either. All the other game modes have the guard button for you to use. I remember using it somewhat in the other modes, mainly against Marks and Milky Way Wishes, but I definitely used it in Arena here, and again, it helped when it needed to. With Helper's Arena, I like the idea that we get to play as our favorite allies throughout the Kirby franchise, but much like Arena proper, I didn't fully complete it either. Again, the boss rush wasn't something I was down to fully do, but perhaps in the future, I'll revisit this and see what I missed out on. I mean, I know there are some cool extra bosses to beat here and there, and hey, when the time comes, the time comes. Still, to at least see Blade, the Yo-Yo, and Sword Knight beat the shit out of DDD, now that's just peak right there. As a collective whole, Super Stars Ultra really is the perfect Kirby experience, and I do recommend this to people who haven't played a Kirby title for the first time. Because of the nature of this being a huge collection of smaller Kirby games, I found myself enjoying Super Stars Ultra much more than I would have, say, if this ended up being something bigger and linear. And I know I said that I wanted something similar to that, but at the end of the day, this is what Sakurai's ultimate goal was for this game, and listen, he hit the nail pretty well. I also like how there are multiple ways to even experience Kirby, and they don't deviate from the level of enjoyment you are already getting from the beginning. They're all fun little snacks all around, and again, I admire the fact that they're not too long to overstay their welcome, but they're also not as quick as they appear to be. Okay, with some exceptions here and there like I said throughout the video. Again, do I think some could have been a little longer still? Absolutely, since I really enjoyed the Cave Offensive's not linear take on the platforming, and Milky Way Wishes and Meta Knightmare modes were some of the best experiences I had with the franchise till now. Seriously, make these two into official games at some point in time, Nintendo, because I think the people want to see Meta Knight in his full macho glory again, and maybe a return to Marks would be alright. Actually, scratch that. I don't want Marks to come back at all. Have him stay floating in space for all eternity or something. I don't know.
There really isn't much to say about Superstars Ultra other than, hey, game good, go play. And I mean, you know, that's basically it. Unless you count the minigames.
I mean, there is not much I can say about them other than it's also a fun time outside of the usual game mode. So yeah, there you go.
That said, the next time we jump back into the Kirby franchise is going to be with Kirby and the Crystal Shards, which is basically the Nintendo 64 entry of the franchise, also considered the first 3D Kirby game, but we'll talk more about why it's in quotations there when we get to that game. I know, as a quick aside, we were in the middle of Kingdom Hearts, and I know we have Kingdom Hearts 2 to cover, which is, you know, I'm very excited to talk about that one, but the reality is, that's a big boy project, and I think we're gonna have to delay that one for a little bit, so I do apologize for that. But at the same time, this means you get to have a bunch of other cooler stuff in the meantime, you know? Like, you got this Kirby video, you're gonna get something very down the line, you're gonna get more of me, you know? So hey, it's a win-win at the end of the day, and it's quite the trade-off, but that's, like I said, that's down the line, and so yeah, that's basically it. This is what happens when you do an unscripted portion. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and sexy out there. Do good into the world. Have fun. Take care. Know that I love you all as always to 120. Peace out and take care. How much does a Kirby plushie cost on Amazon?